Welcome to the Chuck Shoe Podcast. My guest today is Wiley Arnett, guitarist from the band Sacred Reich, and also the owner of Rehab Burger here in Scottsdale, which is a really popular restaurant, not only known to Arizona locals, but it's also gotten a lot of national exposure on USA Today, Food Paradise on the Travel Channel, many more. But yeah, his band, I first discovered Sacred Reich back in the high school days watching this show on MTV called Headbangers Ball. Because when I was a kid back in the 90s, there was no YouTube. So if you wanted to watch heavy metal and hard rock videos, you had to stay up late on Saturday nights. So they would do this thing called the Countdown to the Ball from 11 p.m. to midnight. And that was like the top 10 videos of the week. And then from midnight to 2 a.m., they would play heavy metal and hard rock videos. And I remember seeing the video for the song Independent. And I thought it was such a great song. I thought it was in the same league as Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth, all those guys. And so I bought the CD. Fast forward years later, and I'm talking to my cousin, Will Pitts, who I've also interviewed on this podcast. Check out that episode if you haven't checked that out before. He's an Emmy award-winning journalist. But anyways, I was talking to him, and he's a big fan of Rehab Burger, and he mentioned that he knew the owner of Rehab Burger and that he was in some band. And then when he said Sacred Reich, I was like, it all came back to me with the video on MTV and the CD, and I also remembered they were in the movie Encino Man. And when I was doing my research, I also found out a lot more. I got some great stories from Wiley about not only his musical career and touring with Motorhead and Pantera, but also how him and his friends from Oregano's, it was a popular Arizona pizza place, how they opened Rehab Burger, how the whole thing took place. So enjoy this episode with Wiley Arnett. All right, well, welcome Wiley Arnett, guitarist from Sacred Reich and owner of Rehab Burger. We'll get into all that stuff.
It's true. Good to be here with you.
Yeah. How are you doing?
If I was any better, I'd be you.
Okay. Wow, that's a good one.
Did
I'll
you say
tease that
Sacred
one.
Reich? It's Sacred Reich.
Sacred Reich. What did I say?
I thought I heard right, but
right?
Yeah, it might just.
How do you
be my
say it?
ear.
Sacred Reich.
Yeah, Sacred Reich.
Reich with a
Yeah.
it's a C.
REICH.
Yeah.
Made more sense when we were 16.
Yeah. Well, so you grew up here in the Valley in Scottsdale, Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you were influenced by Leonard Skinner for music, but then it was really Randy Rhoads that inspired you to pick up the guitar.
It's true. I had some family members, so I was introduced to the guitar on acoustic, and what was popular back then was Leonard Skinner. So I learned a lot of that to start with, CCR, open chords, that sort of thing. And I had some uncles and cousins who play, so got a lot of instruction and influence from them. That's what they were doing. So of course, that's what I did.
So how old were you when you picked up the guitar then?
12.
12, okay.
Yeah.
So at the time, this is in the 80s, so it was like, you said it was a lot of like Scorpions and Rat and Dokken and Testament later, I guess.
All true. Once we kind of got through that acoustic introduction and we started to figure out, what we were into, it ended up being the more modern rock of our day. And those were certainly the bands that were happening, Judas Priest. And, I always loved the expressive guitar solos. So, Matthias Jabs and Scorpions and Glenn Tipton and KK Downing from Priest and Warren DeMartini and all of those guys, George Lynch, Dokken.
Were you into Metallica? Because they were around. Their first album was 81.
Yeah, I wasn't at the front of the heavy metal thing. So Metallica was there. I remember I had some friends who were transitioning from punk rock into heavy metal, thrash metal.
Yeah,
and I wasn't quite getting it. A lot of the guitar players were reckless in those genres. And I was like kind of aspiring to be more disciplined and thoughtful. Yeah, they did like whammy bar dives. I look back at it now, and I'm not sorry that I had an opinion that steered me in a new direction.
Sure,
but I couldn't imagine Slayer with a Yngwie on guitar. It just wouldn't make sense. Part of the appeal is like I imagine a coloring book crawling outside of the lines, and the mad dive bombs, and it's not hyper analytical or disciplined. It's reckless and off the rails. So back then it was irritating because I was really trying to be disciplined. I was working with metronomes, alternate picking, trying to really just be a matter-of-fact player. So I wasn't much inspired by that. But as the years went on and got into a thrash band and started to meet all these people, and you mature a little bit. You recognize it had to be that way. Rain and Blood wouldn't have been nearly as cool with a super thoughtful soloist.
So were you taking lessons then, or was this stuff with the metronome and all this self-taught?
It was mostly self-taught.
Wow.
I was getting great tips from people who went ahead of me, but I wasn't really sitting down with taking appropriate lessons.
So, and then did you go to Coronado High School down the street here?
I did.
Okay, I worked there for like a year. That's kind of interesting. There was also that school was in the Bill and Ted movie, and
it's true
until they tore it down, but they kept up the mural.
Right. So you can still see a little piece of that.
Yeah, I think that I interviewed the Gin Blossom singer. I think they went. Maybe the guitarist or somebody from that band also went to Coronado. Yeah, but is that where you met all the guys that are in?
Yeah, there were the four of us. We were all there. We were like a grade apart. Phil, bass player singer, was the youngest. So when he was a freshman, I would have been a sophomore, although I had already dropped out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, freshman year.
Freshman year, you dropped out.
Yeah, I walk around with an 8th grade education.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing for all the things that you've accomplished, though. So
yeah, well, I've got a disciplined mind. I just wasn't if I'm interested in things, I become obsessed, and it's amazing what I can get done. And when I'm not interested, then I just fail horribly. So I've been real fortunate in surrounding myself with things I'm interested in, and then I tend to excel.
Wow.
I don't mind reading and doing the work. I just got to be driven. Otherwise, I'm like.
So what did you do for those? Were you just in bands and doing music during that time? Your parents let you do that? My parents wouldn't give me that choice.
I was living with my mom, and she was not in love with the idea. But I had a couple of family members who helped me in talking to her just that, hey, he is applying himself.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just your average 14-year-old talking about playing guitar. He's already put in several years and he's excelling past, people have been playing 5 years. He's competitive already.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some evidence that maybe I could make something of it. And then I had to just make a commitment that I would use that time to be disciplined. I wasn't going to be sleeping all day and partying all night. So I had needed to show her for a little while. And then she saw that I literally would play 6 and 8 hours a day. She'd have to come flip on my bedroom light. And
6 to 8 hours a day?
Yeah, I went through it.
Wow.
It wasn't for years, but it was during that time, just before we got a record deal, where I felt I pressured myself a little bit that while everyone's at school, I should be doing something.
Yeah.
And I had gotten a busboy job at the Salad Bar, which is right up the street here. It used to be there in that 68th Street in Thomas. Right there in there.
Oh.
It used to be called the Salad Bar. But
that was the name of it? That's not a very creative
The Salad Bar.
The Salad Bar, okay.
It was the 80s vegetarian craze.
Okay.
They had lavash. And
So you formed the band with the guys from Coronado, and then Flotsam and Jetsam was a big, that was a bigger band at the time. They helped you out a little bit in those early days, and they're famous obviously for their bass player, Jason Newsted, who went on to be in Metallica.
Sure.
So you guys know Jason, he helped you out a little bit?
It's true. They had formed the band. I remember seeing Sacred Reich before I was in the band, and they were kind of a thrash metal cover band. And Flotsam and Jetsam was the first ones. I remember they were called the Dogs. And we went to Alternative High, which is the old Apache Elementary School, which I went to for kindergarten to 6th grade. But then they closed it, turned it into a high school for alternative. People were having challenges in traditional school. They could have smaller classes. Long story short, at night, there would be bands playing there. And I remember going to see the Dogs, who would become Flotsam and Jetsam, and being confused by the whole thrash metal thing. And aspiring to, being excited that here's people I'm growing up with and going to school with who are doing things. So that's good. But I've got to find my band, my own little Rat or Dokken or something.
So how would you describe thrash metal to people? Because I think a lot of people just say, oh, Dokken and Metallica, it's all this, everything's heavy metal. So how's thrash? I mean, I know in my head what thrash metal is, but how would you describe it?
Looking back, I would say that, Rat and Dokken were pretty much glam metal. It got turned up from there to Poison and more hairspray, more eyeliner, more bandanas. But before that was them, and they were, the spandex and the eyeliner and the butt shaking and girl chasing. And some really great guitar players.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's what was driving me there. It really wasn't the spandex. But very long story short, Sacred Reich was a band. They did a demo tape. They wrote their first 4 originals and created a demo tape. This was around the time Flotsam and Jetsam had just been signed to Metal Blade Records. I believe it was about 85. And they were on a compilation record, Metal Massacre 7. And then the feedback from being on that record was positive, and it led to a record deal. We had done the demo tape, and Jason Newsted was actually working the New Flotsam material, and he had come up with a college radio mailing list before you could buy a book that told you to do this sort of thing.
Okay.
Like, he was really innovative in kind of cutting, this is how you break bands.
Yeah.
And he understood that his best traction would come from college radio. So he was sending his own tape out, and then he felt weird because the other side of the tape was blank, and he burnt our demo tape on the back of his own, which immediately started creating attention. All of a sudden, we're getting we're getting mail in a P.O. box from Ohio College. Hey, do you guys have some more material? I'm interested in featuring you on my radio show. And we realized that, college radio was a big thing back then.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, because now when I was in college radio in the 90s and I was a DJ but you had to play, like, it was not metal. Like, I don't think they played any metal. So that back in the early 80s, metal was kind of it was an alternative thing.
Yeah, I think there were multiple stations, and we were, obviously communicating with the more metal ones. So going back to your first question, glam metal, heavy metal, thrash metal seemed to be a bit faster and a little bit outside of the lines. To me, I think like Slayer, Rain and Blood is like the blueprint for thrash metal.
A little bit of punk mixed in there too, at least for your band too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like when I listen to Ignorance, I pretty much hear all the riffs we stole from Slayer, that was our first record. We were like 17, 18, 19, and 20 years old. We had never done a record before, so our pockets were full of all the songs we had learned. Phil is a major contributor on writing and a huge Slayer fan. So that's where a lot of that influence came from. But even today when I put it on, I think that's probably true with all musicians. Everything they play, they know where it came from.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's hard to listen to things objectively. Okay. Because everything I've ever done, I know where I got it.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah, take me to that part, because like you said, you're on the Metal Massacre compilation, and then the Ignorance album. It was the same year. So what came first, the album, and then you put that song on the Metal Massacre? Or?
It was the compilation record. The demo was out. The band was starting to get attention, and their then lead guitarist, Jeff Martinick, a good friend that we all grew up with, I knew him well. He went to the Army or Navy or something. He joined the military, and they came to me in a pinch because they were getting attention. They needed a lead guitar player. I know you're not into this kind of music, but can you maybe help us out for a little while until we figure it out? And I'm like, well, let's see. And I'm like, I don't know. I was kind of hesitant. And then Phil shared with me a Testament record. And he goes, hey, I know that one of the things you get hung up on is the guitar playing on stereotypical thrash music. He goes, check this guy out. His name's Alex Skolnick. And I listened,
guitar player.
I listened to that, and I was like, ooh. All of a sudden, the heavier, I could identify with the heavy stuff. It's just I didn't want someone to expect me to just hit dive bombs during the guitar solos. I wanted to be more thoughtful, and he certainly was. So it kind of turned me on a dime right then. I'm like, I think I will do this. And there's an opportunity. I'm like, can I rewrite some of the solos that on the demo and stuff? He's like, just make it your own, man.
Wow.
So early in, we wrote another song together called Ignorance. It was the first song that we wrote with me and the band, and we added it to the demo tape and kept marketing it with the new song. We also re-recorded the title song, Sacred Reich, which existed before me, but I changed up some of the solos and kind of made it my own. And we added those two tracks to the demo tape and started working that. Flotsam and Jetsam was doing a showcase. We know now that they were already being offered a traditional record deal. They had already, it was like 85, they went on Metal Massacre 7, and then Metal Blade was coming back to see them live to talk about a possible full-on record deal. They had already made up their mind they were going to offer them a record deal, but they still called it a showcase. So showcase is where when the labels come in town, and
I've heard about that.
They print up a big backdrop, and you spend extra money on a light guy that night, and you just try to come off as pro.
Is that stressful though, being that young? And is there the pressure? Does that get to you, or does that do you rise above it, or how does that work?
I think it's like any kid who had a talent contest or a play at school. There's some preparation, there's some anxiety. I feel stupid. Is this going to be great?
But all that practice, 6 to 8 hours a day, that's got to pay off at this point then.
Sure. I didn't really, I wasn't, I've always had good confidence in my playing, you know, and I don't try to play things that I'm still working on, you know. But I remember an old saying, the difference between a pro and an amateur is a pro won't play things they're working on in front of people because it exposes your limitations. Right now I've got limitations. There's things I can't play well. And, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But I make it a point to not do that with an audience.
Right.
So they're not watching me at the edge of my ability. I'm just looking super accomplished.
Yeah. But so you actually, I mean, because it's funny because you talk about the glam rock, and like I heard stories about Poison where, you know, they came out and they looked really cool, but when they first started, and some people would argue even still now, they didn't sound that great because I don't think they put as much emphasis on the music, whereas you were just really putting it on the music. You were not putting it on the look as much. You weren't getting the bandanas and the spandex.
We were like anti-poser,
yeah,
which is its own kind of poser.
Sure.
I mean, I look back, we were just as young and dumb, and we enjoyed judging the other people. But from across the street, we must have been fun to point at too. Look at them, all their black clothes and their long bangs and their you know, their high tops. I mean, you know, everyone had their little clique, so we weren't better than anyone, but we were certainly enjoying the tougher guy attitude. Like we don't need all that stupid shit. We're just give us a 4 count. You know, we're a metal band.
Yeah.
So there was a cool attitude about it, and you know, I'm not sorry about any of that.
No, and so that album released Ignorance. Revolver I don't know if you knew about this, probably did, but in August 2014, Revolver placed the Ignorance on its 14 thrash albums you need to own list. So it's definitely still getting attention, you know, years later.
Just this week it was added to another list.
Oh, really?
Top 40 best debut records in thrash music, and it was not Kerrang. Shit, what was it? It just came up in my feed. I'll take a look.
Okay. Yeah, and then so that obviously got you guys some attention. And then so why did you decide to do the Surf Nicaragua? Why was that one just an EP? I always wondered with that kind of thing. Why not make a full album? Or?
We were staying busy touring, and we didn't have a lot of songs. So instead of making an excuse to not go on tour, we thought, well, we'll put out what we have and stay busy.
Okay.
And we just didn't have the material, and we were staying busy and didn't want to park. There was something exciting going on.
Okay.
We were out, we were hitting Europe, we were in tour buses, we were starting to do it. And coming home to write for 6 months and then record for 2 or 3 months was like a bad idea.
Yeah.
No one, not the label, not us, no one liked it. We just wanted to stay busy. We had a couple of these songs. It turned out to be great, just because the record did really well. The song's probably one of our most popular. If you go on YouTube, it's probably got more plays than any of our other songs.
Right.
It connected with a lot of people, and it put us right back out in the field.
And the artwork was really cool too. I think you have that record hanging up in your restaurant, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got the special Seafoam edition, you know, with our beach vibe over there.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, it's very cool. So, and that was I didn't realize I was listening to an interview today with Phil, and he talked about how you guys have that the person in the surfing on the cover of that is called it's the Mascot. It's Odie. Is that his name? He has a name. I didn't know you guys had like a mascot, kind of like Iron Maiden has Eddie. And
yeah, we at one point we had a competition where, you know, name our dude.
Okay.
And there was a lot of fun ones. One that came in that I liked was Warren Peace, like war and peace. But in the end, we didn't choose anyone, and we always were saying, you know, help us name our dude, OD. Okay. So finally, we just started calling him OD for our dude. It lacks some creativity, but it makes sense.
No, that's funny.
It just felt right, and I think there was a stereo and a record collection we gave away to somebody, but
that's cool.
We didn't adopt the name. We just kind of randomly picked one of the people, and that was Loudwire.
Okay, yeah.
That recently, Sacred Reich, Another Treasure,
Top 40
catalog.
Most best thrash albums, or is that what we said?
Including us in the 40 best debut thrash albums of all time.
For sure.
Loudwire magazine.
Absolutely.
So that was really cool.
So it's around this time in '88 that you guys go on tour with Motorhead. That must have been a pretty big step for the band. I had the guy from Dangerous Toys on my show, and they toured with Motorhead as well. And he said that Lemmy was cool, but I don't think he was a fan of Dangerous Toys as much. Was Lemmy a fan of your band, or?
He was a little intimidating initially. And I think our first show, something happened where they got in late and they wanted to go on earlier. They didn't want to go on last. So we had to play after them. Mm-hmm. And it was horrifying.
Wow.
It was probably, 5,000 or 6,000 seater. And I imagine 90% of them left when they were done. It was a Motorhead show. It was our first trip to Europe. Our record was new. We were still building our name. We didn't have the pool to keep everyone in there. And it was horrifying watching them kill it to a, packed room and then going on to a couple of people right up at the front. But it was also, I look back at it, and it was a great way to cut your teeth and get in and learn to roll with the punches and understand that, expectations aren't always met.
Right.
Somehow you got to get through it.
Well, that's a lot of times when you're the opening band anyways, that people are still filtering in, and sometimes it's the lights are still on, and it's a different vibe.
You make lemonade. Now it's that time, we look back at it, it's the time that Motorhead warmed up for us.
So what was it like? Did you have a lot of interactions with Lemmy? I mean, you say he was intimidating, but did you ever get to sit down and have dinner with him or anything? Or?
There was a couple times, during catering at the clubs, we weren't going out to dinner and hanging out at the hotels on our own time, but at the venues and sound checks, there was some interaction, and it was a slowly building thing, but he warms up, and they're really cool. They're loud as fuck. Felt like there was a lot of speed around. Seemed like everyone was amped out all the time, and you can kind of sense it. Big pupils.
Speed, like the drug?
Yeah, like I don't know, cocaine, meth, something.
Okay. Did you get into any of that stuff, or?
I did. It was later.
Okay.
But I did. I would call it a problem that I had there for a little while.
Wow.
It was a little less than a year, but it certainly grabs a hold of you. I got friends who got into it around the same time who've never really got out. Ooh. For me, it went about a year, and I'm thankful. One day I got out of the shower, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself, scared the shit out of me. So I was properly motivated. I think the old saying, if someone's having a problem, they need to want to change.
Sure, yeah.
We don't get better because mom's worried about us, and we don't go to heaven because grandma went to church. At some point, you need to take control of what's going on and give a shit
definitely.
enough. So I feel really lucky. I look back, evidently it's really hard to get off that.
Yeah.
I started out with coke, and then I ended up playing with meth, always snorting, never smoking or shooting, but still crazy. I remember just wasting time talking about things that we would never do. It's a horrible way to spend your time, amped up on that stuff.
So Motorhead was doing a lot at this time, and you didn't really, did you understand that?
I didn't quite understand, and maybe it's, had a hand in me playing with it later. You got to, trying to fit in and do what the big kids did. Huh. But it was a really great first experience, and we really felt welcomed by them. By the end of the tour, it was kind of a hugs and almost like noogies, like we were literally teenagers.
Did you keep in touch with Lemmy at that point, or you kind of? I hear a lot. Yeah, so that's what this seems very common. A lot of these tours, you're like brothers, and then you just go your separate ways.
It's true a lot of ways, and I'm particularly bad that way. Like my mom's got to call me and go, "Hey, are you all right?" I get real what's in front of me, and that's not a trait I love about myself. And I admire these people who are really good about, birthday cards, calls on significant days. And I've got a few friends that way, and it always blows me away that they can be so present, and
or they just put a reminder in their phone. That's what I do.
However they're doing it.
I'm cheating.
It's inspiring, that because there is a huge value in the connections we make and keeping them. So,
absolutely.
So I always enjoy, and I always like to think when I see someone, I can pick up right where we left off with authenticity.
Absolutely.
But I can also go 3 or 6 months without talking to my brother. You get distracted, you got work,
that happens,
chasing your tail, and you just kind of lose track of time.
Yeah.
And it's been that way too over the years, touring with some great bands. We did a killer Pantera tour.
Oh, yes.
Vulgar Display of Power tour.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But so after the Lemmy tour, then you guys released The American Way, 1990. That one actually charted on the Billboard and all that stuff. And then you guys did, in 91, you did another tour, New Titans on the Block tour, that was called, right? With Sepultura, Napalm Death, and Sick of It All.
Yeah.
And I heard Phil talking about this, saying there was a lot of fights and riots on this tour. There was one show in particular he talked about, I don't know if you remember this one, where you guys played in Gallup, New Mexico, which surprised me because I didn't know they had concerts there. But the mayor actually protested this show because he was a religious fanatic and thought you guys were devil music, something like that.
Sure.
And so they actually cut the power in the middle of the show during Sepultura. And Max, the singer, got on stage and said, "Let's destroy this place." But everybody had video cameras. So the cops, and this was right after Rodney King, I guess. So the cops were very hands off at this point. Do you remember that?
Yeah, our manager almost got arrested that night. We were all getting passionate, and the police seemed outnumbered. So we were kind of bold and telling them how it was going to be, and they were reasserting that, hey, we're the law, and we're telling you this is and without us complying, they did pull the power, and then that created a almost a riotous vibe. It fell short of too crazy.
Was this outside or was this in a concert venue?
It was in a concert venue with like a big outdoor smoking area.
Okay.
And it seemed to keep pouring out just to outside the venue. And especially once the music stopped and a lot of the fans were outside yelling with the police. And, the police, it was an awkward situation. Like you said, I didn't really do the math of the timing of video cameras and Rodney King, but it did seem like they had their hands full and were being a bit reserved. Like, how do we assert ourselves, but not burn this place down? Yeah. And it was an interesting night. The mix of bands that were out there had a mix of fans. And as you got into some geographic locations, I think it was in the Boston area, where there was a strong punk rock vibe.
Sure.
And apparently a lack of tolerance from these skinhead punk fans for long-haired metal guys.
Oh boy.
And there was a few times where we'd have to stop our show because we could see some big guys with suspenders, Doc Martens and shaved heads standing in the middle of the pit, and you can see them communicating. They'd pick somebody and then just beat the shit out of them.
Jeez.
They'd start out acting like they were slam dancing with intentional elbows to the eye socket. And then it would work into stomping people who fell.
That's interesting. I remember like going to shows back then. I don't know. Does that still happen with the pit and everything? Because that was a big thing of moshing. Everyone would run around and just push each other. But there'd always be elbows to the face and people.
It seems like it's gotten a lot more peaceful.
Yeah.
It's really.
Well, people getting old, right? I mean, you can't go out there and mosh when you're in your 50s and 60s.
Yeah, well, there's still young people doing it. I mean, in between clubs being uptight with liability and paying security to try to minimize it, there are still times when you can appreciate and experience a good old school pit. We played with Violence at what was that? The LA show a year or so ago, and security just let them up. And they were amazing, and it was the most old school vibe, the pit. And if someone fell, someone would go put their arms out and keep space while someone else reached in and would dust their butt off and give them a kickback. They stand around, someone starts looking abused, people would come and protect them. It was a great old school safe vibe.
Yeah, that's good.
But still a major aggression outlet.
Sure.
Definitely in those early days, I remember seeing some violence in the pits, which we were never down with. We weren't like, oh yeah, F yeah, bust them in the face. That was never.
Do you stop playing if you see something that looks too scary?
We have several times over the years, just to try to get them to stop or to enroll people who are watching to stop watching and help.
Right.
Probably 3 or 5 times over decades where we left the stage to jump in the crowd to.
Wow.
Not feeling like we could stop it verbally.
Yeah.
So physically.
And security wasn't doing enough, or?
Yeah, sometimes security is part of the problem. There's a lot of variables that you can run into out there. But I remember a couple times we were, I want to say Rochester, somewhere in New York, and having a great show, and the stage drivers were going crazy, and the security was being rough, throwing them back in the crowd hard, twisting their arms behind their backs, open hand slapping. So Phil said, you guys need to mellow out. So more of it went on, and he demanded the security leave the stage, or else we wouldn't play anymore.
Wow.
So after an awkward 3 or 5 minutes, the security kind of cleared out, which opened the gates to major stage diving. And then slowly a head of security, who may have been in another room watching cameras, comes out like he's mad at a security team. You don't allow someone here on Friday night for 4 hours to they're not your boss.
Right.
They can't tell you to leave the stage. So he was losing his mind at his own security, got fired up and wanted to know who told his security to leave. So we finished our set, and it was a bit of a melee. The kids went absolutely crazy once the security was gone. So I don't know, there may or may not have been some damage to the club. Not vandalism, but certainly free range stage diving, maybe some spilt drinks on electrical stuff. Less vandalizing and more just a byproduct of people
damage,
going crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy times. And then
he wanted to talk about it, and there was like almost a band and crew versus the security thing going on off the back of the stage. That got a little bit spooky. A bunch of big sporty looking steroid guys and a bunch of stone skinny long-haired and heavy metal kids. We're like, I don't like our chances. Plus we had the big 6D cell mag lights, the old school ones, which are
Ouch.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So we're surrounding ourselves with the tools if needed.
So you're doing the tour, and then 92, you guys got on the Encino Man soundtrack. So was that just a coincidence because you're on Hollywood Records and the movie's Hollywood Films? So
Absolutely.
is that what they didn't talk to you about it, or they just grabbed it and they actually played your music video, I think, right?
Yeah. In the Encino Man, he thaws out while the kids are at school, comes in, he steps on the remote, and then it's like, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back, a little scene, and then he hits the remote, and it's, 35 seconds of the American Way video.
Yeah.
And Hollywood Records, we just signed with them, preparing to do the independent record.
Yeah.
And I believe they had gotten the rights to the American Way
It must have,
record as part of these bringing
trying to help you guys out.
And then I think they do better when they can use in-house bands. They might get a better rate, or they're promoting sales for something. It behooves them to use their own talent whenever they can. So we were really fortunate on the timing of that. They ended up being a classic that's replayed several times a year on several different stations.
Do you guys get like a royalty every time it's played for that 35 seconds? Or?
Yeah. It's not crazy significant.
No.
But some of the old work we did, it's not unusual to get $500 or $700 every 3 or 4 months for shit that I did when I was 18. And in 86, 87, it's just pretty amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So because then in 93 you did the independent record. And I think, would you say that's kind of like your commercial peak at that point? I mean, they played the independent. That's when I discovered you guys, because I heard I think I saw the independent song. I must have seen it on Headbangers Ball, and I went and bought that album. And I guess the song was also on the Program soundtrack and the Son-in-Law soundtrack.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was kind of like you guys were doing pretty well.
We were finally on a major label.
Yeah.
Peter Paterno, who was our lawyer, ended up being the president of Hollywood Records, and that's when we transitioned over there, and we got a sweet deal. The same guy who negotiated all our other contracts with Metal Blade and Enigma was now writing up the contract for his own label.
Yeah.
So it was really nice. Unfortunately, he got fired, and shortly after we got fired or let go. But it was an exciting time. We had a major label. We'd go visit Peter at the Disney studios. It's Hollywood Records is owned by Disney.
Okay.
And one of probably a couple of things besides we didn't perform as well as they would like to see at a major record label. We weren't gold and platinum. We were a couple 100,000 records over.
Okay.
They want to see explosiveness, or what the hell are they doing, right?
Right.
Which you got to understand, their business model is different than an independent who's like Metal Blade is Slagle's a metal fan.
Yeah.
And he understands these guys don't do records if someone like him doesn't do it.
Right.
And the expectation's appropriate. And then when someone sells 100,000 records, it's like drop the confetti. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so it's a different vibe. We went from, being celebrated to kind of like being the troubled stepchild. And you can feel the expectation, and when you're falling short. So it was an awkward time. We were throwing a lot of money at it. We had plenty of support. I look back at that time, I'm not mad at anybody. We were given the perfect opportunity. I think we failed on our own merit. For whatever reasons, we didn't appeal to the masses. Do you think that
you count as a failure, though?
No. I mean, not being able to do the next record and being dismissed from the label was a bit of a fail. Okay. There was an expectation we didn't meet. Yeah. Fail's a dirty word. I don't lose a lot of sleep. I'm not mad at anyone.
I'm sure there's thousands of bands that would love to have even one video played on MTV at that time, or being one video, one song in a movie, or the tour with Pantera. Let's talk about that. That must have been a fun tour. So tell me what it's like to tour with those guys, like back in the prime of. I mean, I saw Pantera. I must have not seen them with you guys opening. Because I don't remember that. But that must have been pretty crazy. I've seen videos of those guys, like in a Skid Row video, where they just go crazy, right? I mean, what was it like backstage?
They're hard to keep up with. Their ability to drink and smoke and party and sleep all day and party till the sun comes up is not a story. It's a truth. They were amazing. Quality dudes, a lot of love. Over the years, I guess in any situation, drama can poke itself up, but they were really gelling as a team. Their performances had an authenticity level that I had not seen a lot, and I'd already been touring for a while. It was kind of a stop and watch, like, whoa. When you're all on the same page and you don't talk about it, you just do it, and it just kind of arrives. Like, they weren't talking about, okay, then this part of the song, you come forward and I'll fade back. And like the whole stage presence.
Yeah.
Inevitably, as stages get bigger and a set list you should think about. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. People waited in line, got a shirt. You got to bring them on an experience. So it's not unusual to have a discussion or try to anticipate how you're going to deliver an experience to your fans. But these guys were so organic and authentic. And from night to night, there were some key points that would... at that time, it was great to act that way, but there would also be really big switch ups where there wasn't the same language every night introducing the song and stand in the same place. It was just real organic. That was one of the things I picked up on early that was influential. Dimebag was already a guitar hero.
Sure.
And being able to pal around a bit and watch him close from on stage was amazing. And just how effortlessly, he didn't spend a lot of time looking at his guitar. He could spin it off his side, just an extension of his person, almost like you see a kid who's really good on a skateboard. Like this, they can't fall off it. They just stick it on the wall or just grind it down the rail and flip. It's almost like watching that with him. And I like to think I'm an okay player. And it was amazing for me to just kind of witness that. And, all these years later, it's no surprise to me that he's joined the historic, significant guitar player.
Absolutely.
He's immortal.
Yeah.
He's joined, like the Randy Rhoads, taken too soon and a serious body of work left behind for many people to be inspired by.
So what was some crazy, do you remember, is there things that stick out, like stories or crazy things happened on that tour?
Yeah, a fun one, I think it was in Ohio O'Hara Arena. It was the last night of the tour, and we toyed with, I wonder if it's cool to do some pranks on stage and stuff.
Oh boy.
And we were playing for a while, and we were noticing that they were doing something on the side of the stage, and there was some silly string, and it started ramping up, and then they kind of disappeared. And I remember we were 3 or 4 songs in, and I was thinking, well, I guess that was it. We got some silly string. It wasn't so bad. And then I'm noticing the front row of the crowd are looking past us, pointing and laughing. So it took me, 30, 40 seconds. Finally, I turned around. I'm like, what is going on? They had dropped a backdrop over our backdrop, like taped some sheets together, and it was a skull similar to our dude. And I think it said "suck it right" or "belch it right," some play on the words. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was some sarcastic shit. And then it had a bunch of funny stuff written all over it. So here we are,
that's cool,
trying to act tough and play. And meanwhile, our whole backdrop. And then it started to progress from there. At one point, Dimebag came out, and it was like hard to hold on to my guitar. I didn't know if he was trying to take it from me or what was going on, but it was crazy. In retrospect, I think they were distracting me because they put about 10 pounds of ground beef over my MIDI pedal. So, there's a foot controller for your amp. You can go from clean channel to your dirty channel to your lead channel. And
distortion and all that. Yeah.
There's a foot controller. So it's on a MIDI cable. It's run out to the front of the stage. And a guitar solo came up, and I was kind of like, I was looking for it, and the lights are flickering, so that sometimes they can be hard to find. No. So I went back to the amp, and I followed the cable, the MIDI cable, figuring there should be a pedal at the other end of it. And it led to about 10 pounds of ground beef. So I tried to kick some of the beef off of it so I could see where the buttons were, and then I started stepping on buttons. And the funny thing about that is 3 or 5 days later, 85 degrees in the back of an equipment truck. It was like quite the stinky science experiment going on in my foot controller.
But it still worked and everything?
Yeah, it worked good, and we got it. We ended up disassembling it and getting a proper cleaning internally on it.
Okay.
To this day, I've still got those Marshall cabinets that were on that tour. And
wow.
one thing that's really cool about them is there's ketchup stains from Dimebag. And he'd come out, he had like cap gun holsters, and then he had a mustard and a ketchup bottle. And I saw him squirting people. And in my mind, it was that, the ketchup bottle with the red string and the knot. And everyone flinches, but it's not really ketchup.
Sure.
So I was laughing. I'm like, oh man, these guys got all kinds of tricks up their sleeves. And then he came by me, and I just kind of stuck my face out like, go ahead. And it was ketchup.
It was real ketchup, not fake.
Whipped across. I remember wiping my neck, and it was like in my hair, and I'm like, what the? You smell it. It's fucking ketchup.
Yeah, those guys don't fuck around,
No, it was a real deal. And then there were a couple other nights where, they'd hang out, and there'd be some diehard fans after the show who'd sneak around to the back by the buses. And there was a kid who was just really loving hanging out with the band, and he had a Camaro. And I'd be like, can I drive it? He's like, fuck yeah, man. Like, had no hood on it. It reminded me of myself. Like, car had no stereo, but all the chrome from the local Checker Auto Parts. No hood because it wouldn't fit because, the big fat air filter. And smoking pot, watching Dimebag run donuts around this parking lot. It was another fun thing. And then that night we signed a car. It was kind of like the first time I ever signed a car.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's wow. So, like this great high, you got the songs on the movies, you got your videos on MTV, and then you're touring with Pantera, and then all of a sudden, what? They just the record company drops you. What happened there?
Yeah, we
they thought they would expect you to sell.
There was some more time.
Millions records.
Yeah, things were still going good, and after the Pantera tour, there were other fun tours. I can't remember exactly what they were off the top of my head. You're doing better than me with the timing. But there was some more time that went by, and I think it was probably 96 was the Hill record, and we lost Greg, our drummer, and Dave McLean came in
from Machine Head. Yeah, he later would join Machine Head. Yeah,
correct. So we were in this weird transition, and I remember metal was struggling a bit. The Seattle grunge scene was coming in and dominating attention and sales, and Nirvana, and a lot of people were like, geez, what way forward? Maybe we were a little too late. Like there was this prime metal spot and we got the tail end of it. Yeah,
because at some point, I think was it 95, 96, they canceled Headbangers Ball. And this is before YouTube. So I remember staying up until whatever it was, 2 a.m, watching metal videos on MTV. Midnight, that was the only time you could watch it. And so when they canceled that, I was like, well, now how do I find out about bands anymore? Like, it was just really bizarre.
So you're seeing a decrease in record sales. You're seeing a decrease in ticket sales. We were going back to club. It's like you start out, you go on your first tour and you're playing, 60, 100 seat, bars across the States, pulling a trailer in your 10-passenger van. And then finally you get to this 1,500 or 3,000 seat, larger club or small, arena looking things. And then you think, you sell to yourself, wow, it's working. Next stop, Coliseums. And then you kind of backstep, like, is this that club we played a few years ago? And it just wasn't working, It seemed like we were going. We plateaued in a very respectable place. We plateaued,
sure,
but not meeting our expectations.
So, record companies.
So there's a frustration, and even internally. I mean, you're trying to stay enrolled mentally. It's tough work.
Sure.
The first couple of years are a lot of fun, but you start to learn that I live out of a bag.
Did you guys have a tour bus at that point, or did you rent one, or how does that work?
Yeah, by independent and all that. We didn't own one. We'd always rent them, lease them for the tours. And but it was comfortable traveling and stuff. It's a great way to live life, especially when you're in your 20s, traveling around in a rock band every night.
And you guys did world. I mean, you were all over the world, right? Not just U.S.
No, it's true. We spent a lot of time in Europe. Later, we ended up in South America, and then we've still never been to Russia. We did go to Australia, New Zealand. Haven't been to Japan. So there's still some places we haven't seen that we're excited to make work.
But around this time in the mid-'90s, the popularity of the band waned a little bit, and then you guys were dropped from the record. You hadn't necessarily quit the band yet, but in '94 you took. Is this true? Around this time you took a job as the director of purchasing for Oregano's Pizza, and then you ended up you worked at Oregano's for 18 years.
It's true.
But you were still in the band for the first 6 years of that job, right?
Yeah. I would kind of take off for a couple months to tour, and then I'd come back and say, okay, if you guys need help. My wife would get pissed. I'd sit around all day. She was working full time, and when I'd come home from tour, I had about 2 weeks to relax, and then it drove her crazy that I was sitting around smoking pot, playing video games while she was at work.
You kind of earned that, though.
I started going. I had friends that I went to high school with that were over there. A gentleman, David Leonard, was the kitchen manager over there. So he hired me, and I came in as a cook for minimum wage. I was a prep cook, and then I worked my way into a pretty cool position. There was one location then. By the time I left, we had opened about eight locations, and I ended up with an office gig in an executive position.
So why did you take that job though in 90? Because I mean, you're still, I know that, the band maybe had waned a little bit in popularity, but you still had a pretty good resume as a guitar teacher. Why didn't you, or as a guitarist, why didn't you take a job as a guitar teacher or something else related to the music business? Were you just fed up with the music business at that point?
I kind of.
Okay.
I kind of burnt myself out on it. I never felt qualified to give lessons. I'm self-taught and very untraditional. I don't mind giving some coaching, but I don't have a disciplined theory to slowly unfold and bring someone along. I enjoy playing with people who are relatively new at it and sharing perspective, but half the time I don't even know what key I'm in. I'm just a real from the hip feeling player. It's funny because, like I said earlier, I spent the time in the discipline with metrodomes, and that's just hands-on time. But what I wasn't doing was reading books or taking instruction. I was training my hands. I was listening, working on vibrato and alternate picking.
So you don't know how to read music or? Mm-mm. That's interesting. When I was
over the years, I've accidentally picked up on some stuff just by hanging around real professionals.
But most of when I was in high school, I took guitar lessons, and my teacher told me, he's like, yeah, all those guys that you like, Angus Young, he's like, none of those guys know how to read music. I was like, and it kind of like blew me away at that point, because I thought, oh no, they're like professional musicians, but no, a lot of them, they just self-taught.
There's different paths for different people. I don't really believe there's a right or a wrong way. It's so individual. I think some people are really really suited for being book smart and disciplined and learning that way. And then, when there's a challenge in their life, they can fall back on these troubleshooting skills that they learned. I remember a few times, even in the purchasing job, having unique situations that I'd never faced before. And I would have to really troubleshoot and try to figure it out. No one ever taught me this. I'd never seen it before. And sometimes I would be jealous of some of my coworkers who were college graduates with bachelors in business. They would immediately start have this point to go to. Well, if this happened, we should be checking that. And it was because they were taught. But then there's also been times where I felt like an advantage because I wasn't limited to anything anyone ever showed me, and would think outside of the box, not because I was, trying to, just because I didn't have a box.
Sure.
So you have to think out of the box.
Well, and you probably learned a lot from what I've learned, is that a lot of people that are, with success, is that you got to fail a lot and learn from those failures and mistakes.
In music, like when you're writing, it's such a creative process. Some people are served well by knowing the whole music theory. So it's like, I got this riff I like. It's in C sharp. I immediately identify these 6 directions that shake hands well with C sharp I could go, where I don't. So I really, sometimes the best part of writing or developing a guitar solo for me is stopping, and I listen, and I start to hear something. And it's not coming from my music theory. It's not coming from my understanding of how notes shake hands. It's being inspired by what I'm hearing, and it's leading me to the next place. And then I'll search for it and find it. And then sometimes I have to train my hand because it's new to me, and I just bring it up to speed, and it becomes, one of the things I do.
Wow.
And there's something really organic and natural about that process that I like.
Sure.
But it's not better or worse.
It's different.
The way I work, that works for me. And I like that I'm not considering all my options. I'm afraid that would be loud, and I wouldn't be inspired by hearing the next part. I would be analyzing my options instead of just kind of emotionally feeling.
Well, yeah, that's got to be a big piece of music is how you feel and the emotion. I mean,
sure.
Yeah, so the band takes a hiatus for about 6 years, and then you formed a band called The Human Condition with Saint Madness vocalist Prophet. And then you did the 6 years hiatus, and then around 2006, it sounded like there was kind of a resurgence in popularity. It was interesting because I heard Phil's take on this, and he said, well, we were able to kind of get that resurgence because, our metal was more socially conscious and political, and not about the upside down crosses and churches, burning churches and things like that. So it was like, I think that was like a big thing that was big in the 80s that maybe didn't have as big of a resurgence, but with the thrash metal, I think it was a little bit more timeless, in my opinion.
I think that's a fair observation. It's also true that a lot of bands we were out with back then who weren't socially conscious / political are also enjoying a resurgence.
That's true. Yeah, definitely.
Cannibal Corpse and Overkill.
Yeah,
and these guys staying busy, and they're back at it. It's 2020. They got new releases.
No, there's so many.
And that's not not their case at all.
No, I know, because I'm interested in a lot of the glam rock, the hair metal stuff, and that's even had a big resurgence as well. A lot of it is with these cruises and then these festivals, which in 2009 you guys did a grass pop metal meeting. You ended up playing this festival a few times, and some of the people you played, you played with Ozzy, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Sebastian Bach, Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Journey. I mean, the list goes on and on. Is there any band that you didn't get to play with that's on your bucket list?
It's just been Randy Rhoads.
Yeah, well, that would be nice.
I was a little late, but probably would have run into him eventually because, like you just noted, we did kind of catch up with everyone. Not at the same level. Yeah. These guys are, a lot of these bands you're noting, they're playing between 7 and 11 p.m. on Friday night, where maybe we were Friday afternoon at 1 p.m.
So how does that work? So do you even see these other bands at all? I mean, you're still on the same bill, but
sure. Yeah. Like when we go through, we're usually these festivals are 3 or 4 days. Thursday to Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that. And there's 3 stages. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's bands playing simultaneous, but they're 400 yards apart, so it's not an issue. And then almost like a big Warp Tour. If you've ever been to a Warp Tour, I've taken my daughter a few times, and it's like you gotta get the schedule, the itinerary of who's playing when, get with your group of friends and decide who you're gonna watch, and you might have to sacrifice or make a difficult decision. One day I was really upset because I really wanted to see Leonard Skinner, who was playing the stage over at the same time as us. So in between songs on a couple occasions, I was like, just give me a second. And I was picking things up and I was working on the guitar because I just wanted to hear Sweet Home Alabama another 30 seconds before we got started again. That morning we were in the same hotel. I can't remember. I think that was Summer Breeze festival, but we woke up in the hotel. I got up early and I went down for breakfast, and I'm like, hey, can I sit here? And there's some guy enjoying breakfast, and I started talking with him. I go, like, you working this weekend? He goes, yeah, I play in a band. I go, oh, cool, me too. He goes, what band you playing? I go, Sacred Reich. He's like, oh, I think I've heard of them. I go, who you playing with? He goes, Leonard Skinner. I'm like, no shit. I said, what do you play? He goes, I play piano. He goes, I've only been with them a couple of years, so I'm not on the old record or anything. But yeah, so we sat and we had breakfast, and then later I caught up with him, and he was kind of my excuse to get closer to the stage. Yeah. We were playing at the same time, but they were preparing and we were preparing, and I just went over there. I had a golf cart, and someone gave me a ride over there.
Would you ever want to do that? Would you ever want to join a really big band like that, like Metallica or Megadeth or Slayer or Exodus or something different?
Not necessarily. I think it would be fun, like Phil Demmel from Violence. When Gary Holt's father was ill, he stepped in for a while. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I could have done it. I mean, Demmel, he learned 18 songs in 48 hours and then was on stage at festival-sized crowd. Wow. Pretty amazing what he took on and how well he pulled it off. I mean, I'm not surprised. He's a great guy and a talented guy. But boy, that phone call to me, I would have been full of his anxiety. Oh my God, it's a lot to get done. But I could imagine something like that being a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I really love the band I'm in, so I don't spend a lot of time thinking about, boy, I wish I could be in. How cool would it be to be in Metallica or something? Obviously that would be amazing, and the success that is associated with those large bands is certainly welcome. But in the end, I'm 52 now. Yeah. And I'm hanging around with people I grew up with. We're playing things that we're passionate about. This new record's got a real positive vibe that just really shakes hands with our nowadays perspective. Let's
talk about that. So 2018, you guys finally recorded another, I think it had been, 26 years or something you had done?
25, 26.
So Awakening. It was actually recorded here in Arizona, in Mesa, a place called Platinum Underground. So how long does it take you to record that? What's the process like?
I think we got it done in 1 month. Okay. And there might have been just a little bit of mixing and mastering, after that time, but all the tracks and most of the mixing was done in, what was that, March. Okay. Last year. So then 19.
And then you guys get to go on tour with GWAR. Can you explain, because for people who don't maybe know a lot about heavy metal or what GWAR, can you explain, I don't even know how to, I'll have to let you do it because I can't explain what GWAR is. It's a very unique concept for metal
GWAR is the only intergalactical non-human metal band on Earth. They crash landed in Antarctica where they're based and under an ice shell somewhere. and Hidden Out. But basically, they're a lot of fun. They're like a party band. They're like AC/DC with makeup on, about getting drunk.
And they have these big costumes with like foam.
Yeah, a lot of blood. They squirt blood all over the crowd.
And all sorts of things.
It's like a real experience. Like earlier we talked about, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
There's certainly an experience, and they stay tied to your current events. So there's Trump stuff in there. There's legalized pot stuff in there, but it's usually done with like a sarcastic humor.
Okay.
And at times it's just...
And some of it's tasteless, right?
Crude. Yeah.
I think my friend saw them, and it was during the John Benet Ramsey thing. And
yeah.
So, I mean, I think there's no bounds. I mean, you probably get away with a lot more stuff back in the 90s.
This tour, I was caught off guard. There's a Bruce Jenner dressed as a woman cutting a baby out of,
So it's dark humor, I
Caitlyn
guess.
Jenner. Yeah. It's definitely
politically incorrect. Maybe it'd be
and a lot of blood. I mean, it's the first tour I've ever been in where 2 hours before sound check, you're covering the whole building with plastic. I never saw that before.
What do they use for blood? Can you say, or is that like a trade secret?
It's a theatrical stuff. It's water with a powder.
Okay.
There's a ratio they mix it up in, and then they have these large tanks. They're using a lot of compressors and pipes to distribute through, and then the uniforms, or the costumes, they have little connectors on them, just like you might have in a garage for the compressed air, and then they're able to blow.
It's like movie special effects almost, right?
Yeah. So I mean, if you get it on you, it's pretty watery. But it's deep red and it stains clothes, and it looks, on the floor, it looks like puddles of blood for sure. It doesn't feel like blood,
I'll have to check that out.
It feels like red water. And then there's also green, which I think they call slime or alien blood. But again, if the viscosity is...
So this has got to be worse than just Dimebag spraying you with ketchup. Like, did they spray you with the stuff on stage?
They were headlining.
Yeah.
And so we were on a clean stage before they went.
Sure.
And then by the time they went,
they don't come out early and start spraying you ever? Or?
No, we didn't have any issues with that.
That's good.
And I think they're also trying to keep the air in the compressors, and they've got just enough juice laying around to get through their hour and a half set. What a bunch of great dudes, though. Talented musicians, funny as hell. The first couple shows, I was aware of them, but I'd never seen them. And I was kind of like, I don't know what the fuck's going on with these guys. This is a little bit crazy, a little bit crude, and inevitably my wife and daughter are going to be at one of these shows. I don't even know how to prep them for that.
Yeah.
But I just told them, put on your seatbelt. It's crazy. And everyone has fun with it.
It's good.
Yeah. I got it.
I've never seen them live, but I think it would be an experience for sure.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Stay back if you don't want to get wet.
I guess so.
Some people say you got to get it on you to really have the true GWAR experience. I managed to get through the whole tour without getting hit.
That's impressive.
I still feel like I had a great experience and a lot better understanding. And I softened up on some of the judgmental, that's too crude. It took me a little while, but I started to sense the sincere comedic quality, the sarcastic exaggeration, not like, no, I'm serious. It wasn't like that at all. It was like,
that's kind of like I don't know if you've ever seen Steel Panther, one of my favorite bands.
Yes.
Very crude, but you could tell it's very sarcastic and very...
Satch kills me. He's one of my favorite people to watch on his videos. It's just the way he stays in character and says ridiculous things. He was talking about his new Charvel guitar and how, they got the pattern off a panther or something, and just like this whole funny story, and he just doesn't break character.
Right.
And these guitars are so great. How does it play? It plays like butter. If you could put guitar strings on butter, that's what it feels like. And he goes, and the cool thing about these is if you ever break a string, we'll send you a new guitar. And I'm like, the dudes at Charvel are going, don't say that.
That is funny.
Yeah, he's just hilarious.
One more thing about the music. So I heard Phil talking about your guys' old catalog, that you guys are still trying to get the rights to that old catalog, because some of these old records are out of print and they're selling for like $40 or $50 on eBay. So I guess Phil wrote this big long email to the record company, pouring his heart and soul to Hollywood Records, saying, look, I know this isn't a priority for you, but this is our life's work. We really need this. And the response he got back was, you're right. It's not a priority for us. Which is just terrible. So did you guys ever get the rights to those old records?
No.
Oh
no, it seems like we may be finding appropriate personalities like we were running into strangers who were busy with other shit, and we're brutally honest. And you're right, this is not a priority for us. That really did happen, and it was a beautifully articulate letter that Phil wrote, appealing.
That's sad.
It means nothing to you and everything to us. Is there some way we can have this discussion? And he did a really nice job of framing up the, a reasonable debate about why we should engage in this conversation. And there might be compromise. We need to split the difference. But let's get busy with it. And you keep a piece. We'll do the pushing. You see if we can create some money for you. But it's such small potatoes for what they're doing, and it just fell on deaf ears. And we've been unable to secure the Hollywood record stuff, which is independent.
Oh, okay.
And A Question, which was an EP that we kind of dropped out of ourselves because they were impatient while we were getting independent ready. Like they just signed us and they needed something. So we did the A Question EP.
So you guys, you can still, I think you can get them on iTunes though, and Spotify and stuff, right? Or you guys don't own it?
Right. Yeah. Okay. We don't have the right to reproduce it and release it and distribute it like through Metal Blade, our current record label. We wanted to re-release it. We wanted to print them up, have new ones, get the prices that you were talking about down, do a reasonable press. We no need to have 1 million of those laying around.
Sure.
But even if we just printed 5,000 or 10,000 of them, it would drive down that price. We hate the idea of thinking that people are spending. Some of the things we've seen on eBay are ridiculous. It's a tremendous compliment to think that something you did so long ago has become valuable, but you also recognize it's because it's rare. It's like Brazilian ginger root. You got to really dig for it.
Yeah,
it's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But so anyways, besides the band stuff, going back to you ended up quitting the Oreganos, and then you opened up Rehab Burger in 2011. You or co-owner, I guess it's with you and a couple of the people from Oreganos, right?
It's true.
Yeah. So, tell me about that. Like, because
my partners are Ken Likewise and Denise Nelson. Ken Likewise was the chef over at Oregano's Pizza Bistro for 18 years. We all signed up around the same time. I think it was 92, 94, something like that. And Denise was the director of operations. Started out, she was the lead server. He was the kitchen manager, and I was a lead cook. Okay. And then as we started opening more locations to duplicate the success of what we had in Old Town Scottsdale, he took his 3 key people who were responsible for running the shifts in Scottsdale. We opened a Tempe location, and we did what we did there, and we duplicated the success. So then he started realizing he had a team of people who understood why he was successful, and we started being pulled out of the traditional operation, focused on overlooking all of them to ensure that there was consistency and continuity as we got to 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 locations. So that's how we kind of became executives and took on new titles: director of operations, procurement, director of purchasing, procurement officer, and then, chef Ken. So we were having a lot of fun with that. It was really a great experience. I learned a lot. Like I told you earlier, I was a high school dropout and pretty quick into a record deal, touring in a rock band. When I got done with all that touring, my resume was perfect joint rolling and high score on NHL 95.
Yeah.
Not very good for getting a job. So we kind of worked our way through that and just were surrounded with a cool leader or boss, the owner of Oregano's, Mark Russell. Now later, all these years later that I'm the owner of a restaurant, I recognize one of his superpowers was developing a team and then letting them go.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because I read this. It says, for me, myself, I am educated. I have a master's degree and I worked in the schools for 17 years. Nobody ever listened to my ideas, ever. And this is amazing. You listen to the servers and the cooks. Anybody can throw out new ideas or new burger ideas. And if the cook likes it, then it shows up on the weekend menu. And if it gets really popular, which I guess the peanut butter and jelly, which is my favorite burger, it gets on the permanent menu. So you actually listen to your employees. What a novel idea.
It's crazy, right? This idea that the people interacting, where the rubber hits the road, know something about the road. That's what it acknowledges, And we learned that. I mean, that was one of the lessons we learned is we had a boss that created a team of us and then would suggest ideas and watch us fight through it. And then the byproduct would be policy.
So
yes,
who was
no, maybe.
Yeah.
This is what I love. This is what I hate.
Yeah.
We would wrestle through it, find ways to mitigate the upsets and maximize the success. And then, it would slowly become policy. And that's where we got our confidence over the years that maybe we could do this on our own. Oregano's was continuing to grow, which isn't a bad thing, but inevitably you have to start adopting, more corporate philosophies. And we were kind of missing a smaller, more agile, where we could have an idea Tuesday, have it installed Wednesday. There was this whole, with the logistics of even starting a new menu item. You needed to project your usages. You needed to get the warehouse stocked up. You needed to educate all the, 21 managers on protocols for receiving new order guides updated. But not a bad thing, inevitable with growth. But we were kind of missing that. And I think he was getting frustrated with us, like maybe we were fighting the growth a bit, missing the old days. And so there was a bit of a falling out, and it wasn't the same, relationship that we were all prospering in. So I left first. No, actually, Denise left first. I left about 3 or 4 months after her. And then Ken was still there, and we agreed that we all missed each other and we should have a barbecue and just kind of catch up and compare notes. We had different opportunities. We would compare notes. What are you doing? What am I doing? What are we doing? And we were talking about our different opportunities and drinking tequila and making hamburgers. And there was an old joke. The three of us would vacation together when we were working at Oregano's. That was the cool part about not being glued into a schedule at a location, is we had some freedom. We could vacation together. So we usually go to California, Boardwalk City, or go out to Mexico, get a house for a few days and just barbecue and sit on the beach. And an old joke we used to always tell is nobody knows Oregano's has the best burgers in town. And what happened is we were working on a meatloaf recipe and with French's Meats, which is here in Scottsdale. And we identified this blend of bone out sirloin and brisket that just is amazing. You can cook it hard so it's not pink, but it stays moist. It's a slightly larger grind size. And we would have leftovers from the meatloaf with all the Italian. We just hand press some burgers with salt and pepper. And they were amazing. So we would joke, we would ask French's, hey, can we get that beef? We're going out. And it was a long-standing joke. Like a manager needed to get a hold of one of us. You can't get a hold of them right now. Where are they at? They're in rehab. So these are the two ways. This is where Rehab Burger Therapy came from. It was, we happened to believe, we've lived in Arizona a long time, and we happened to believe we were eating the best burgers in town.
And they didn't serve these at Oregano's, right?
No, it's Italian. And the only reason we found that beef is because it was an ingredient in meatloaf.
Yeah,
which failed. Which did.
Yeah.
Like we tried the meatloaf for three or 5 weeks, and then we yanked it. It just
and they never tried the burger though.
No, there's nothing to cook a burger on in there.
Because it's all ovens.
Deep fryers, pizza ovens. There was no grill. But we were inevitably working with samples, having leftovers, barbecuing in the backyard.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you fast forward, and we get to this backyard party. We're like, why don't we just open our own place? We'll call it Rehab Burger Therapy.
There you go.
Escape the daily grind, get the treatment you crave. It would be fun. And we'll use that burger. We already know it's kick-ass. I mean, we've eaten everywhere in town.
Right.
Chuckbox, Fuddruckers, and we're restaurant veterans now. We've been at this 18 years, open 10 locations, and we all agree that's the best burger in town. No one knows about it.
Yeah.
So we started working with French's. We got the burgers in line, came up with our logo, got a business plan, got some investors, signed a lease, and
wow.
This month was 8 years. We've been open over there.
And you guys have how many locations now?
Back down to one.
Oh, back down to one.
Yeah. We opened one in Tempe that was a real struggle. We opened one in Phoenix on 16th Street in Bethany, which was about to turn the corner. And then we got hit with like everybody else. And we're like, okay, just cling to Scottsdale. That's the one that we can count on. Created a lot of debt with a couple of failures. I didn't want to do PP loans for 3 locations and have $1.6 million in loans. The future is pretty uncertain right now with COVID and everything else going on. So we kind of like retreated to our safe spot.
Yeah,
and are just thankful to have that.
So did that location stay open during the lockdown for takeout then, or?
Scottsdale, yeah.
And so you guys are doing
takeout only and delivery. We were using Grubhub for delivery service.
And you guys are doing okay now that things are opening back up?
Yeah, I mean we haven't returned to pre-COVID numbers, and we just lost baseball season. You know, you're a local here, so you know that.
Got the spring training and
spring training is huge, and our location is about 3.5-4 blocks from Scottsdale Stadium. It can get anywhere from 8 to 14,000 people in it, depending on what day of the week and if their big stars are playing that day. And they're just gone. I think we had 4 of 18 games before the season was canceled.
Sounds about right.
So you know, I remember the Saturday before the announcement that spring training was down, we did over $16,000 in sales, which was on par for a good season day. And then the following Saturday, we did about $700. Oh,
jeez.
Yeah, we were missing like 15 grand in one day.
Oh my God.
And that was the beginning of a really scary time where, you know, everyone was. And because we're fortunate and get busy, we really don't do a lot of to-go business.
Sure.
So we kind of spent the last 8 years training people, don't call us for to-goes. So we were watching people be busy around us. We're like, what the hell is going on? And then we had to kind of recognize, you go on a 3-hour wait and then someone calls for 10 burgers or even 5 burgers, you tell them no. Right. Because it's going to make your 3-hour wait a 3.5-hour wait.
Sure, that makes sense.
And people get upset who are sitting in front of you because they can't see what's going on the phones.
Right.
And if they could see, they'd be like, why would you let some asshole call? You know, we don't think they're assholes.
So you didn't do takeout orders at all?
We would cut them off. Like we would take them when we could, but if at any point the person on the phone could look at the door and see a wait, I'm sorry, we're not doing to-goes right now. And, you know, you train people one at a time. And over a period of 8 years, a lot of people got the message. Don't even waste your time calling them. They're busy and they won't do to-goes. Like we'll do midday stuff, early weekday stuff, Monday through Wednesday. There's a chance you could pick up dinner at 7 without an issue. But by Thursday night at 6 p.m., we're like, hey, not doing that just because it kills our wait time.
Sure.
And we're erring on the side of people standing in front of us who can choke us.
Well, if anyone's listening to this, if they live in Arizona and they haven't tried Rehab Burger, they definitely should. And if they don't live in Arizona, when they need to put it on their bookmarks to come when they come visit, definitely come check out Rehab. I think it's got it. I can't even list all the awards you guys have won from different Phoenix magazines and websites and things about cool. best burger in Arizona, not even just Phoenix. The whole state.
We got some nice national accolades like USA Today, MSN.com, Sugar.
Delish, I think, was one of them.
Yeah, a lot of nationals, which is super cool. We think that's mostly to do with a strong online presence. And a lot of reviews, which which comes back to award-winning food. So there's been a lot of local awards that create a splash. And then I think when these guys, I don't know if they send someone to every state to have a burger. I think what they do is they look at Yelp reviews. They look at how many Facebook followers you got, and they have some metric to kind of go like, these guys are killing it. Yeah. And we've gotten a lot of those. We were featured on the Travel Channel Food Paradise. That was pretty cool.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, there was one day there was an older couple, and I was walking through the restaurant, and I heard the wife tell the man, "That's him right there." And
because they saw you on TV or something?
Yeah, and I thought to myself, man,
maybe they were a fan of your band?
I know we're getting older, but I can't believe they're Sacred Reich fans. So eventually I heard that, so I knew I would come back and
How does that work?
Hello.
So when the Travel Channel, these TV shows, do they just contact you and say, hey, we're going to be in the area, we want to do a piece on your...
Yeah. They contacted us. They said that, congratulations. We had won something recently. That they're going to be doing work in Arizona, the most Western food, and they're doing a beef section where there's a show that's just all like the best beef in town. And there was us and 2 other places that were featured on that particular... They were in Arizona for a week, but on the episode we played on, it was just featured 3 restaurants for meat.
Okay.
Wow. So
I didn't know that's interesting about the that it came from a failed meatloaf project at Oregano's. I did not. That's right. I didn't even know the connection at Oregano's until I started doing my research. It was really fascinating.
Oregano's never saw a burger.
That makes sense.
Our old boss and the owner of Oregano's, Mark Russell, he doesn't know what I'm talking about. These were sampled leftovers from projects in the kitchen, and then we learned that it was so good we started requesting it. So over years we would actually buy it from when we weren't sampling anymore. We like, hey, can I get that blend? 5 pounds for our own backyard get-togethers.
So do people ask you more for free food at Rehab or free concert tickets?
Tickets.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's, it's kind of awkward going to a restaurant. Hey, give me free stuff. But it's not awkward. One of the funnest memes through this whole COVID thing is like, hey, right now a lot of your band friends are suffering, so maybe just shoot them a text. Hey, what time you go on? Any chance I can get a +1? Just to make us feel normal again.
To make you feel normal.
Yeah, it was just a kind of a funny meme. A lot of bands aren't working right now. So it was just kind of funny, like, make them feel warm and just ask.
What is your take on that with the concerts? When do you think that will come back? Because I feel like there's already some live music at small places or outdoors, but I mean the big concerts, like these big festivals that you guys are always involved in.
It's hard to imagine that happening before there's a well-distributed vaccine. Just that's crazy numbers, Like the Wacken Open Air Festival is like 140,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Grass Pop's like 75,000 people, and Hellfest is similar. And I can go down the list. There's about 11 significant festivals that we're fortunate to be able to.
So you don't think they would do like check people's temperature or some sort of warning, like enter at your own risk? We can't guarantee, or they're just gonna.
It's like this discussion, that there's some argument about what the percentage of it is, but there seems to be certainly an acknowledgement that people are asymptomatic.
Yeah, yeah.
So putting 100,000 people in a spot just because the temperature was good. And I don't know. I remember in grade school, if I needed a temperature, I could hold a penny under my tongue for a few minutes before I went to see a nurse. And I imagine that if I needed to get in a concert that I bought a ticket for 6 months ago and I was sick, I would hit eye drops and hold a cool towel on my head, and I would bust up.
I didn't think of that. People cheating.
And integrity happens. Yeah, I mean, there's just the innocent. Like, I feel fine. I have no temperature. But could be symptomatic. Yeah. So it's a weird thing.
The risk is too high because people don't want to be associated. Yeah. They don't want the news story. 10,000 people got COVID at this concert.
Sure. Yeah. And Philip's at risk. He's got asthma.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's fought diabetes. So and we're early 50s. Mm-hmm. So we're not 60 or 70, but we're not 31 or 22 either. Right. So you add asthma and diabetes to 50 years old, and suddenly maybe
that's
we
should
scary. We should be carrying our Santa Claus.
Yeah. So are you working on new music then, or writing?
Yeah.
Trying to get something?
Yeah, absolutely. God, we haven't ruled out this idea. Maybe we could be in the studio by winter.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow. Phil, God bless him, after a huge amount of times, not feeling inspired, has just been a bit of a well of new ideas and music. Okay. And then, we have a new guitar player, Joey. He's 23, and he's just on fire, inspiring. He's got lots of fresh ideas, helping us look at ourselves different.
Cool.
And then, Dave comes from a real disciplined environment with Machine Head. Yeah. So it's a cool scenario, and there's a real excitement. So everyone's kind of driven and passionate right now. So at first we were kind of like, we had the whole year pretty much booked, including all the summer festivals in Europe that I'm missing right now. And then early in the year we would have been US with Sepultura and Crowbar. All that stuff got canceled. So it's been a weird time, but I was impressed within 45, 50 days of accepting that our plans had changed, kind of switch gears into writing. Okay. And there's already like 5-6 solid ideas cooking that could easily just be songs here. In a week or two.
Cool. We'll look for that. I always like to end with a charity. I don't know if I think I told you, did you have something that you like to work with, or the organization?
The one that always comes to mind, and I don't do enough charitable work, but it's the Children's Hospital.
Sure, yeah. I have a friend that works there, the one in Phoenix.
Yeah. I mean, that's when given the opportunity a couple times at the restaurant. There was a couple times I used the Scottsdale Boys and Girls Club because I went there and it was positive for me. Yeah. But there's, in these days where, everyone's wrestling for insurance and trying to keep their jobs, the things they're doing at the Children's Hospital is just absolutely amazing, and how they're there for people. Cool. And get top quality. So I think that's, if I had an opportunity to wave someone in to support someone, I'm like, don't forget about these guys who've been doing it right for decades. Absolutely. And can always use help.
Yeah, very cool. Well, you've been a part of a great metal band. You traveled the world, and you shared a stage with some of the biggest rock stars of all time. You've been part of 2 major Phoenix restaurants here. I mean, is there any other mountain that you haven't climbed yet that you want to do? I mean, You said the new album possibly, is there?
Yeah, just more of the same. There's not something specific that I'm pining after, but I do feel like I don't feel like I'm slowing down. I feel like I'm speeding up. I feel fortunate at this age, whether it's true or not. I feel like there's still a lot ahead of me that I'm excited about.
Cool.
I don't feel like I'm on the coast side of being the coach and the witness, which inevitably happens. I still feel like I'm a participant. Give me the ball, coach.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like it's just nice not feeling like I'm on the sideline.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on the field and I'm part of a great team. And every year,
two great teams, right? With the band and the restaurant.
Sure. Yeah. I almost combine them. I mean, they're certainly very separate, but I just feel real fortunate to be surrounded by some talented, driven people. And I recognize I can't do anything alone. You know, it takes a team to see things through, especially things like this. Yeah. Recording records, distributing them, showing up on places and playing. There's a lot of people got to do their job for that to work.
Yeah.
And the restaurant's real similar, you know. I almost look at the restaurant as a gig. You know, there's this pre-open time, which I liken to sound check, where they're adjusting lights on the stage and they're check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2. You know, we're getting everything tuned in. And then someone notices the clock, hey, doors in 10 minutes. And then the lights die and the lights dim. You show you a little bit of your backdrop, start letting people in. Hey, is merch ready to go? Soda's on 4.
Yeah.
Burgers, you know, whatever it is. And then the menu is the record. People have their favorite song. Yeah. Every time they come, they just want to hear that song. They don't care about any other song. It's their favorite song. It's their favorite menu items. You can't get them to try something else. You know, we got other great stuff.
Right.
No, I'm going with what I know. So there's that aspect of it, you know, and then there's a bit of a pressure, you know, enjoy your hits, but you got to come up with a new song. So, you know, trying to be innovative with the menu.
Oh, that's true.
There's a lot of correlations for me, which is
probably
probably
cool.
just my perspective. But
it's very neat.
Like lights, camera, action. There's this work that you do alone with the band. There's the rehearsals. There's the R&D. What it was, you know, what's the art going to look like? What's the flavors? You know, negotiating the cost. What's to go packaging? You know, there's all that, like the T-shirts, the album artwork, the distribution. You know,
definitely a lot of creativity in both, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they're totally different, but totally similar. And I imagine if I was into more things in life, I would be able to draw the connection there as well. I think it's always that way. With any luck, you're passionate about what you do. You're surrounded by some people. You pine in a backstage environment, and then you put on your damn show. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for doing my little show here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll be in touch. I'll definitely love to come see you. I won't ask for free tickets. I'll pay for my own ticket once you guys do a show here again.
Awesome.
Okay.
It's nice to get to know you, Chuck.
Yeah, you too. Thanks. Yeah. So there it is. Wiley Arnett, guitarist from Sacred Reich, owner of the Rehab Burger in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you like heavy metal, definitely check out his band on all the platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google, etc. And if you like burgers, who doesn't like a burger, and you're in Arizona, you got to stop by Rehab Burger. I recommend the PB&J burger, but they're all great. I want to thank Wiley for taking the time to come on my show. Super nice guy. He had some great stories and told me some more stories off the record. But I am going to ask his permission if I can share 1 or 2 of those on Patreon. So I just signed up for a Patreon account. This podcast has always been and always will be free. But if you want a little bit more content and you don't mind paying a few dollars, I'm hoping to provide some bonus content on my Patreon account, stuff that's not on these episodes. And I really haven't done much with it yet, but I'm hoping to grow that just like I want to grow this show. And of course, I'm always on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And you can find Wiley as well as Sacred Reich and Rehab Burger on all the social media as well. I want to thank you so much for listening and shoot for the moon.